Mass Prosper Party, Calvin Fube Bualia, says the involvement of the current president, Hakainde Hichilema, in the burial of his predecessor is the main issue. Bualia says the late former President Edgar Lungu did not want President Hichilema near his body. His comments come as the Zambian government has been granted an interdict halting the burial of the Lungu family's request yesterday. Lungu's family have refused to allow for his burial to take place in his home country because of his bitter political feud with Hichilema. Bualia says the family is trying to honor Lungu's final wishes.
One, the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, would have personally rendered an apology to the Lungu family. Second, he would have just delegated the responsibility of the entire funeral burial program to be handled by his vice president or any of his other ministers, but not him personally. I think that's where the crux of the matters are, because the family wants to honor the wish that the late president left, that Hakainde Hichilema must not be anywhere near the body of late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu.
Kenyan activist Marilise Biubwa says they will not relent fighting against the high cost of living in their country. Protesters took to the streets yesterday to mark 1 year anniversary of the anti-tax demonstrations. Predominant broke out with 16 deaths recorded, lost and scores injured. The Communications Authority of Kenya ordered all television and radio stations to stop any live coverage of the demonstrations or face unspecified regulatory action. Biubwa says they will continue fighting for better living.
We want a more affordable cost of living in Kenya, but also we no longer want Ruto in the office. He has looted all that he could potentially loot from the country, and Kenyans want their country back, and Kenyans are clear on that. We will keep fighting if it's the last thing we do for our country, Kenya.
As South Africa commemorates the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, academic Peter Ntuli asserts that the majority of the Charter's promises have been abandoned. President Cyril Ramaphosa is set to deliver today's keynote address at the official commemoration in Kliptown, Gauteng, where the Charter was first adopted in 1955. Professor Ntuli says the Charter has lost its value.
We came up with brilliant ideas. We had the RDP, reconstruction and development. What is it that we are reconstructing? What is it that we are developing? The agenda is just very clean and clear. Only needs ideology to implement it. Then we also came up with the Chapter 9 institutions, all of them that were geared to fulfill that kind of a chapter. But then somewhere along the line, neo-coloniality, that template of oppression, took over the ruling class, that it became now more about money, self-serving greed and corruption.
South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperations, Ronald Lamola, says global war creates significant hardships. Lamola addressed the third G20 Sherpas meeting underway in Sun City in the Northwest Province. This, as the United Nations marks existence. Lamola says there are no victories in war, but rather more victims.
Following last week's U.S. military strikes in the Iran, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, and I quote, "At this perilous hour, it is critical to avoid a spiral of chaos." We understood the United Nations promise 8 years ago, collective security over cohesion, the extinguishing of the law of the jungle. Alas, we find ourselves in an evolving global disorder that brings with it many perils for the weak and for the vulnerable.
Lastly, Iran state media says the government has begun reopening airports in the east as life slowly returns to normal. The The official number of deaths from the Israeli attack has now risen to above 600. The BBC's Liz Duché, who's in the Iranian capital Tehran, is being allowed to report in Iran on condition that none of her reports are used on the BBC's service. This law from the Iranian authorities applies to all international media agencies operating in that country.
Traffic is starting to return. The first international flights will happen today. You can see on the streets of Tehran there are still cafes and shops and government offices which are still shut. So many people left this city when Israel started attacking, and some of them haven't come back yet. They want to be sure that this ceasefire is going to hold.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Zambian captain Barbara Banda says their opening game against Morocco in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament will not be a walk in the park, while Cricket South Africa as well as New Zealand Cricket announced a wide ball tour that will feature the first ever T20 international series with double headers between the White Ferns and the Proteas women and the Black Caps and the Proteas men's side. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Onele Nzinzi with our news update and Msabudi Makura with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's Audio Bouquet Channel 802, on OpenView Channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on hashtag Africa Update Us, regarding the body of former Zambia's President Edgar Lungu, should it be the government or the Lungu family who have the final say about where the former president's body should be buried? Give us your views and your thoughts and comments on this crisis that we are watching unfold. Should it be the government of Zambia or the Lungu family who have the final say about where the former president's body should be buried? Share your thoughts on all our social media platforms. This is hashtag Africa Update Us.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Marks 70 years of the adoption of the Freedom Charter. Researchers and academics are baffled that there are people who continue living under severe deprivation of basic human needs. This, they say, in spite of this historic document adopted in June 1955, outlining a vision of a prosperous South Africa with its principles of democratic governance, social and economic justice. Calvin Dludla has more.
26th June 1955, thousands gathered in Kliptown, Soweto, to outline the vision of a new non-racial and prosperous South Africa which espouses and respects human rights, social justice, and where there's equality for all. Academic Professor Pitika Ntuli had hoped that as the country marks 70 years since the adoption of this historic and visionary document, it would be miles ahead when it comes to socio-economic development.
It's very, 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 very depressing, but at the same time, we just need to hope. I was hoping that with the government of national unity, where different people come, each and every party would like to prove itself to be really worthy of it. That's the only chance we have. And that is where we need actually to commit ourselves back to the ideas of the Freedom Charter.
He says there is an urgent need to address the country's challenges as this creates a fertile ground for social tension.
Discontent is rising. Some of us who spend most of time with younger people, the youth, wherever we go, because of what we actually do, you feel that discontent that is rising. But remember what happened now with Fees Must Fall. The Fees Must Fall movement was just moving. It just stopped up at a certain time. If something like that were to come back again, more actually orchestrated, we would be talking something that are totally different. I don't want to be alarmist, but the possibilities are that if nothing changes or shifts, no one can guarantee.
According to some analysts, it's clear that what was envisaged for South Africa in the Freedom Charter has not translated into the lived experiences of the masses on the ground.
You read the Freedom Charter today and you see the extent to which most of our people are not enjoying the freedom that was envisaged by the people who contributed to the adoption of the Freedom Charter. So it could even be argued that the Freedom Charter, from the perspective of today, is almost the unfreedom charter.
And that report by Calvin Luther. It is 12 after 12 Central African Time.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
The Kenyan government ordered all television and radio stations to halt live broadcasts of ongoing protests in Nairobi and across the country. The protests mark the first anniversary of last year's deadly anti-tax demonstrations that saw Parliament stormed. The Communications Authority of Kenya cites constitutional violations, constitutional violations, but the move sparked outrage among journalists and activists who call it an attack on press freedom. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by a Kenyan intersectional feminist and activist, Marylise Biubwa. Marylise, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon and thank you so much for having me.
Now, what's the current situation regarding the protests in the country?
The current situation as of today morning is clearing off, but we are still struggling a bit to reconcile reports that are being made by many of the mainstream media stations and TV stations and also print. Because yesterday at around 1:30 thereabout during the protests, the government had given a directive that all media stations stop broadcasting live their proceedings on streets in different parts of the country. And while that was contested in court and it was deemed illegal to do that, from there on out, the reports that were coming through the media stations were not necessarily the most reliable ones. And I think Kenyans really did a good job with regards to coming in and using their gadgets in the streets, regardless of the fear that there was a lot of theft and goons that had hijacked the protest to steal things from the citizens that were participating in the protest. Kenyans did a spectacular job of ensuring that they capture and report, but also keep each other updated on the issues and the state of affairs on the streets and in different parts of the country.
Now, Marylise, we've seen on visuals on different media platforms where people were cornered in passages and corridors with tear gas being thrown left, right and center. And there was a report that some of the soldiers or the people on the ground or the authorities enforcing this and beating up people on the ground are correctional services workers. What exactly is happening? Who is doing crowd control? Who is, who was trying to work with protesters to ensure that the peaceful protest continues?
Of course, citizens have responsibility to be able to manage the crowds because we are the ones going on the streets. And I don't think Kenyans have failed in that. I think what has really failed is the inability of the government of the day, William Samoei, and all the people who work under him as the commander-in-chief having directives to harm Kenyans. I remember yesterday at around 9:30 at the CBD, and the protests were going, and we were down trying.
Mary-Lise, I have to ask you, we're going to try and get you in a better connection because we miss a lot of interesting parts of this conversation, and the network is not the greatest, but we'll try and get you back on the line. Hopefully you can hear me better now. Well, that's Mary-Lise. Mary-Lise, can you hear me better?
Yes, I can hear you better now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that sounds a lot better. Okay, if I'm going to ask you to stop moving around and just stick to that position where you are, because then you're a lot more audible.
Yeah, I had to move to a place that had better network. It's better here, I think.
Yes, it sounds a lot better. Yes, you were giving us the details of what's unfolded on the ground and how protesters have behaved, and the reaction, obviously, to the tear gas and being beaten up.
Yeah, as I was explaining, excuse me, please, I'm on a call. I'm on a meeting, please. As I was saying, yesterday as we were starting the protest, Kenyans were kneeling down on the streets and they were singing the national anthem. And it was the police that came in around 7 cars that were full of police, and they started, throwing tear gas at the people who were protesting. And so I think the biggest conversation has been the fact that Kenyans have been showing up to protest peacefully, but the government has been very keen to ensure that they disrupt the process. In the last week's protest, they're the ones who made sure goons made it to the CPD and supplied them with all that they needed to harass and beat up people. And to yesterday as well, we had at some point goons infiltrating, stealing from people, attacking from people. And what is coming out as of today morning is that we have cases of women who experienced rape and sexual assault while all that was going on. And all this is under the directive of the government, because even when the cops were shooting, even when the cops were, throwing canisters of tear gas, even when the cops were using rubber bullets, all they constantly kept on saying is that they've been given a directive. And while they failed tremendously at ensuring that they barricade the places where they didn't want people to go, they made an intentional effort to come to where people were protesting and attacking them and making sure that a lot of people were injured in the process.
There have been reports of loss of life. Can you confirm that and exactly what's happened, especially if you do confirm that, and the families? I can imagine what the families are also going through.
Yes, according to the reports, again, as of today morning at around 10 in the morning, we have 8 people who have lost their lives across the country, with some of the cases that stand out being in Kisii, for example, where they arrested one of the protesters, took the protester to a police station, and then after a short while, they released the protester. But when the protester got to the gate, they shot at the protester, and that plummeted the protesters into panic, and I think a police station was burnt in the process. But Nairobi, yesterday, as of today morning, there's no case of death that has been reported, but I can confirm and report, because I was also able to be at the medical yesterday and to interact with some of the cases of people who are being brought in because of injuries.
Yeah.
Nairobi has experienced the most injuries, but as of now, there is no case of death in Nairobi, but there has been a case of 8 people dying in different parts of the country.
All right, Mary-Lise, we have run out of time and are going to have to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. That's Kenyan intersectional feminist and activist Mary-Lise Biubwa speaking to us from Nairobi in Kenya.
Africa at Play with NATO and ETO chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands, and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events, and like this year, we will have the under-20 and under-18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior in Ghana. And 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under-18 and under-20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our performance. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the British Federation, there are about identifying young talent every year within the national program, within the scholarship championship. And so the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Africa Update with Lulu Kabu on Channel Africa.
It is 21 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The High Court in Pretoria, South Africa, has granted an interdict halting the burial of Zambia's former president Edgar Lungu. The Zambian government had approached the court seeking to stop the burial, which was scheduled to take place yesterday in South Africa. The government argues that disputes over Lungu's final resting place need to be resolved before any burial can take place. We are joined on the line by Advocate Simba Chitando, a human rights lawyer, to analyze this interdict. Advocate Chitando, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Afternoon, greetings to your audience.
Now, Advocate, what specific legal grounds did the Zambian government cite under South African law to justify their urgent application to halt the burial? And how does the Pretoria High Court's jurisdiction apply in this cross-border dispute?
That's a very good question. A very unprecedented case, albeit one that many are saying there is a precedence for. First of all, I think the premise of your question, I'd just like to correct. I don't believe the High Court has granted the interdict. What I saw happen in court yesterday was that the parties, the government, Zambian government that is, and the family of the late president, late former president, agreed that the matter will be heard in August, and further papers will be filed. So there's an agreement that, hold on, we'll argue this interdict application as an opposed case, but further papers will be filed, and they made provision for various amicuses, and also that is a friend of the court for those that don't know, and other parties who may want to join. And I anticipate that the South African government might join, because Minister Lomola did visit Zambia. He met the president of Zambia, and he said that the position of the South African government is that the former president should be buried in Zambia. So a lot still needs to happen between now and then. And I think there's just been an agreement rather than an interdict that nothing will happen until the interdict application is decided by the High Court.
Now, the Zambian Attorney General referenced Article 1775C of the Zambian Constitution to argue that the burial of a former president is a matter of national interest. Now, how does this constitutional sort of provision interact with South African legal principles? And what weight might or may the court give to such a foreign law?
Yes, well, it's a very, very good question. I mean, like I said, it's unprecedented. But my own view, and this is a view without having seen all of the papers, that I have already said that the governments, the Zambian government, will be filing further papers. But what is important for us who are watching these proceedings take place is to understand that the High Court in South Africa is governed by South African law, and South African law does make provision for foreign law to be considered, but the foreign law is not the highest law in South Africa. The highest law in South Africa is the South African Constitution, and the South African Constitution does favor the family of the former president and their wishes of where they want to bury their loved one. So it is going to be an interesting matter to hear. I don't believe anything has happened like this in the past, at least regards to a foreign head of state being buried in another country and it being a contested issue. But in South Africa, the South African courts will apply South African law. They will consider the interests of the family, and I believe that is where the greatest when it's getting the balance of rights and who should the court favor, I'll say I would lean towards the family. But we will see what papers are presented. Further papers will be presented by the Zambian government.
Now, just given the fact that Lungu's family insists on a private burial in South Africa, they've cited that this was his dying wish. Does government, as you've stated already, that the family would have sort of the last decision when it comes to a father, a grandfather, a husband, a brother, and so to speak, but also what the Zambian government is, they believe that because he was a former president, he has to be given the rights of a former president, but also the family coming out and stating that all those rights had been sort of revoked, but not formally, because when he came into South Africa, he came in on an economic flight. He walked through the airport just like any other person, and he wasn't given, the rights of a former president of Zambia. How do we marry the two, and how does the Zambian government justify all the issues they had up until just before his passing?
That's a great question. I mean, first of all, he wasn't, before he even came to South Africa seeking medical assistance for some time, and this is all public knowledge, he wasn't allowed to leave Zambia to come to South Africa for medical treatment. The Zambian government denied him, and they put it in writing. And anyone who's been following this can easily find it. It's in the public domain. But what is important is that he was not a sitting president at the time he passed. He was an ordinary citizen, and he's a citizen of Zambia. Was a citizen of Zambia, and he has a last will and testament. And those laws regarding a deceased person, those are sacred. I would struggle to see a situation where the Zambian government take possession of the former president's body and buries it, with full the status that one gives to a former president, against the wishes of the former president and the family, and that the South African government would then participate in such a process. I would struggle to see how the Zambian government will overcome that, and how the court would find in their favor in that regard. My own view is that this matter should settle. If it can't settle, I believe that the Lungu family should be allowed to bury the former president in the manner in which they decide.
Well, I guess we all have to wait until August to find out exactly where this will end, or how hopefully it will be resolved even before that period that has been given by the courts. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update today.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, and to you too, Advocate. That's human rights lawyer, Advocate Simba Chitando, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 Central African Time, and our news headlines up next with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. The family of the late former president of the Republic of Zambia, Edgar Chakwa Lungu, says the court case brought by the Zambian government to hold the burial of the late Lungu in South Africa yesterday will give the family an opportunity to tell how Lungu was ostracized and ill-treated by the current Zambian government. Kenyan activist Marelise Biubwa says they will not relent fighting against the high cost of living in the country. 16 deaths have currently been recorded of people killed during the nationwide anti-government protests in Kenya yesterday. And the White House says it is now confident it's dealt with a substantial blow to Iran's nuclear program and wants to reopen negotiations with Tehran. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Onele, for those headlines. We say good afternoon to Msibudi Makura with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A very good afternoon from the sports desk. Now, Zambian captain Barbara Banda insists that the opening game against Morocco in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament won't be a walk in the park. The Copper Queens' last game against the Atlas Lionesses ended in a win for them, and that helped them qualify for the Olympic Games in 2024. So Morocco, as well as Zambia, will face off on the 5th of July at the Olympic Stadium in Rabat. And Banda says playing Morocco at home will be a difficult task.
Preparations are going on so well, and playing Morocco is not an easy game, and moreover, we are playing them at home. They've got all the support, and they have the 12th player on the pitch, and we know, but we're trying by all means, trying everything possible that the first game is always important in the tournament, so we're looking forward for that game, and our aim is to go through first. We are taking each and every game at a step. So we're looking at that game very seriously, and we are taking it seriously.
Meanwhile, Zambia announced the signing of Nora Haptul, a former Swiss national defender, in January as a replacement to Bruce Mabwe as the head coach of these Copper Queens. Banda says the players now understand the coach's philosophy.
Coming in of the new coach, I think, he's trying to make a powerhouse, trying new different players, which we know, like she's mentioned the names, looking at Frida and Messi and all these young players. I think the response is so well during training sessions. I think trainings are going on so well during training sessions. The response of the team, we are all together, we're moving together as a team. This is why I said we are looking forward for the first game, because the first game always shows how far we're going to go in the tournament.
Mamelodi Sundowns head coach Miguel Cardoso has revealed plans to trim the playing personnel to a manageable size in the coming weeks. This after the Brazilians were eliminated from the FIFA Club World Cup following a goalless draw against Fluminense, who progressed to the round of 16 along with Group F leaders Borussia Dortmund. Now, Cardoso confirmed soon after their game at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, that he will be working tirelessly to reduce the size of the squad.
We want to reduce the number of players in the team. We want to make a smaller team, smaller group, but also we want to make it more, even with more quality. So reduce, but make it with more quality, so that we have already more than one player with high quality for each position. We have more than two, but we need to have two that can replace each other 100%. That is what we need to do.
Now, the Portuguese mentor also says a more detailed assessment of what is needed will take place during the month-long break before the new Betway Premiership kicks off in August.
Look, unfortunately, we are out of the competition, and now we have 5 weeks until the beginning of the next season. From these 5 weeks, we're going to provide 3 weeks vacation to the players, because these boys, they need so much to rest. And we think that 3 weeks is time enough, not enough, but it will not provoke any drop so dramatic on their shape, on their condition, so that then with 2 weeks we can prepare the first match that we're going to play.
And finally, in cricket news, Cricket South Africa as well as New Zealand Cricket have together announced a white ball tour that will feature the first ever T20 as well as a double headers between the White Ferns as well as the Proteas women and the Black Caps and the Proteas men's side. Now, the 5-match T20 series will take place from the 15th and the 20th of March 2026, with both the women's as well as the men's teams playing on the same day at the same venue, a first for the two nations in a bilateral series. The Proteas then will play in the afternoon. That's, of course, the Proteas women, followed by the Proteas men's side, playing under the lights in the evening, offering fans back-to-back matches in international venues in different stadiums across New Zealand. Now, following the T20 internationals, the Proteas women's side will remain in New Zealand for a 3-match one-day international series from the 29th of March to the 4th of April, which also forms part of the second round of the IWC matches for qualification for the 2029 Women's Cricket World Cup. And that's a wrap from the Sports Desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. It's 12:36 p.m. Central African Time. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Hey guys, question. Have you thought about what happens between 9 o'clock until midday, Saturday and Sunday? Well, it's me. Those that know me call me the fun police, and I'm that girl, that voice on your radio. My name is Pule Mulebati. I'm all about the finer things in life. Where to go, what to wear, who to see, and ultimately what to do. We aspire to bring you the best in travel, entertainment, with a dash or maybe a dose of laughter. And then of course we switch things up a bit when we look at technology. I love what's happening with AI because you blink, something new pops up. So the challenge is constantly there. I'm learning every single time on the show. So catch me every single Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. until 12 midday Central African Time. Baba.
Well, thank you to Msibudi Makura with our sports update, and we say good afternoon to Buntle Headbush with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Lulu, and a very good afternoon to our listeners. In our top business story at this hour, Ethiopia's central bank says international banks and investors can apply for a license to operate in Ethiopia immediately, capping the government's drive to attract more overseas investment into the domestic banking sector. The East African nation, which struck a 4-year, $3.4 billion program agreement with the International Monetary Fund last July, is undergoing a major reform push, which includes flotation of its birr currency and efforts to complete an $8.4 billion debt restructuring with its official creditors. In December, Parliament approved a long-awaited law to allow foreign banks to establish subsidiaries, open branches or representative offices, and buy shares in local banks. Ghana's parliament has approved a $2.8 billion debt relief deal with 25 creditor nations, including economic heavyweights such as China, France, the United States, Germany, and the United Kingdom. The deal marks a crucial step in the country's ongoing efforts to recover from its most severe economic crisis in decades. The approval is expected to unlock further disbursements under a $3 billion International Monetary Fund bailout program, which Ghana secured in May 2023. Tabisa Luhoko reports.
The IMF-backed bailout has since helped stabilize the nation's economy, which has been reeling from inflation, currency depreciation and debt distress. The deal also prompted a positive credit rating revision from Fitch, according to a parliamentary report seen by Reuters. The terms of the debt treatment offer a debt service relief of $2.8 billion during the fund-supported program period 2023-2026.
The National Assembly of South Africa will this afternoon consider the report of the Standing Committee on Appropriations on the Division of Revenue Bill. The bill outlines how government revenue is divided between national, provincial and local spheres of government. The sitting will be at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. Earlier this month, the fiscal framework and revenue proposals were passed by 268 votes against 88, while 2 MPs abstained. The fiscal framework allowed for the implementation of the general fuel levy increase. The latest report by BankServe Africa shows that take-home pay declined for the 3rd consecutive month in the month of May. BankServe Africa attributes the decrease to a challenging economic landscape characterized by slow economic growth domestically and a deteriorating global economic outlook amid tensions in the Middle East. The latest data shows that the nominal average take-home pay dropped by 1.3% to reach 17,296 Rand in May compared to April. Independent economist Elise Kruger elaborates.
2025 has so far turned out to be quite a volatile year, with multiple global shocks and also a good dose of local challenges. This has resulted in notable downward revisions to growth, and this has subsequently resulted in an environment of low confidence and uncertainty, not conducive to economic activity. And that is really what I think we are seeing in the salary space, with companies conservative in terms of salary increases in the light of the uncertainty and the lower or reduced economic growth prospects.
Egypt plans to import liquefied natural gas to cover demand from July 2025 to June 2026. The move comes as it ramps up purchases to meet power demand despite strained government finances. Last month, local media reported that Egypt reached agreements with several energy firms and trading houses to buy 150 to 160 cargoes of liquefied natural gas to complement its domestic production and pipeline imports from Israel. Tracy Bungard reports.
According to data from the Joint Organization's Data Initiative, Egypt's gas production has been on a downward trend in the past few years, reaching as low as 3,485 million standard cubic meters in April 2025, compared to a peak of 6,133 million standard cubic meters in March 2021. The North African nation has had to resort to load shedding, raising imports from Israel and seeking foreign funding for LNG shipments. Data also shows that Israeli gas currently accounts for about 15 to 20% of Egypt's consumption.
Now, in our first look at the indicators this afternoon, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 548. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 27. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 56, and in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 39. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 53. Russia, 78 rubles 26. In India, it's 85 rupees 98. China, 7 yuan 17, and South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 75 cents. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities this afternoon, gold is trading at $3,341 per ounce and platinum at $1,401 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $67.89 a barrel. And those are your business news at this hour. I'll be back with more in the next hour. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hedbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Africa Update with Lulu Kabu. 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Bunte Hedbush with our business news. It is 12:44 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A digital well-being summit is underway in Johannesburg in the Gauteng province of South Africa. It's hosted by short video publishing platform TikTok. The summit is aimed at engaging creators, media, and mental health practitioners to better understand the dangers of overexposure to digital platforms. Experts say digital well-being has become an all-important aspect of technology and digital existence. And to discuss this further, we have on the line Fortune Mgwili Sibanda, who is the director for TikTok Sub-Saharan Africa. Fortune, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thanks for having me, Lulu. Good afternoon.
Now, Fortune, you know, a lot of digital platforms are addictive. That is it has been confirmed, it has been proven. Let's talk about the purpose of this summit and obviously what it means going forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I think precisely what you just mentioned. The purpose of the summit is to share with our stakeholders some of the tools and innovations that we have to, be able to address some of those issues that you mentioned. So we at TikTok, we want to affirm to the public that, when it comes to safety there is no finish line. And well-being is one of the major safety concerns when it comes to online platforms. So we want to make sure that we continue to innovate in the space and continue to educate our user community about some of the tools that they can tap onto to ensure well-being online.
Why was it important to empower creators with the right kind of information?
Yeah, creators form a very important part of, the broader TikTok user community. They are the ones that actually, ensure that people keep coming back to our platform. So being that influential, we want to make sure that we equip them with the right messages that they can share with other users, people that consume their content, and also equip them with the tools that we have. We've got a lot of kindness tools on TikTok that they themselves as creators can use. So, for example, when someone posts a video, as a creator, when you post a video, at times maybe you don't want people to comment, right? So there's a simple tool where you can, just turn off the comments. You just want to share what you're doing or share your story. You really don't want to hear, people commenting on it at that particular time. And it's a very simple thing, but it actually could be a very crucial way to ensure your own, well-being online. So there's quite a lot of those tools that we are sharing here today. And some of those creators actually will be our digital well-being ambassadors to make sure that they can spread the word to other users within the platform.
And how does one establish a healthy relationship between technology and the virtual world?
A very important thing is that while we are, an online platform, one of the key messages we always like to share with people at TikTok is that there's a real world outside there, right? You should also be able to go and play out there in the real world. So you don't need to spend, hours and hours, watching or consuming content on platforms. There's a real world out there. So what we do as a platform is then that we empower users with specific tools that can help them, make sure that they can balance their life on the platform and off the platform. Some of those tools include, screen time management, constant reminders that will come to you and say, listen, you spent more than 30 minutes on the app scrolling through content. Maybe now you want to take some time off. That small bit of reminder can actually maybe get you out of that zone and be able to look up and maybe focus on other things. And that is very, very important to balance, your online habits with your offline habits.
What are some of the digital wellness features and other efforts aimed at keeping users safe while on the platform? You mentioned earlier the no comment, and I think that's a very good feature. But what else?
One of them is keyword filters, right? You can, as a creator, for example, or even as a consumer, you can actually enter on your content some of the keywords that you do not want from people using. Let's say when they are commenting on your video that you just posted. So it says simply saying, if someone says this, don't even show the comment. It sounds very simple, but it can also be, help to protect you from abuse online. Some of what we are announcing today at the summit is the expansion of our meditation tools. These are tools that we actually had introduced for our younger users, so teens, from between 13 and 18. We have this meditation tool during sleep hours that comes up and helps you to meditate and be able to turn down. So today what we are doing is that we are rolling out this feature to everyone that is on the platform. It's a very useful feature. I've used it myself. I've tried it, and I find that it really helps to just turn down a bit before you sleep and be able to switch off.
Well, Fortune, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Updates. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you.
That's Fortune Mgwili Sibanda, TikTok Sub-Saharan Africa Director, joining us on the line.
Update on Channel Africa.
The International Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking aims to raise awareness about the importance of treating people who use drugs with respect and empathy. The drug problem is a complex issue that affects millions of people worldwide, leading to drug users facing discrimination and living with a stigma that can further harm them. And for more on the day, we are now joined on the line by Mutsabi Nkwane, a social worker policy manager at South Africa's Department of Social Development. Mutsabi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me.
Now, Mutsabi, tell us more about the day.
Okay, today is the 26th of June. We are commemorating the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. This day was initiated by the United General Assembly to raise awareness on the issues that are affecting people regarding drug abuse.
Now, do we know how widespread drug use is on the African continent and more especially in South Africa?
Yeah, drug abuse is a problem in South Africa, especially the issue of alcohol. If you remember well, 2 years ago, we had an incident at the Enyobeni Tavern in the Eastern Cape, whereby we lost 21 lives due to the abuse of alcohol. So alcohol in the country is a problem. And the other issue is that we are experiencing the usage of crystal meth now. Young people especially, they're using crystal meth. And then also the other common drug that you are having is the hookah pipe, which has become fashionable and which is also dangerous, especially affecting your respiratory organs. And also what is fashionable nowadays is this, what we call lean. Lean is, they take the fizzy drink and then they mix it with a codeine cough mixture. A cough mixture syrup, and then they put a hard candy there and they'll drink it, and it makes them intoxicated, especially at the schools. So it's a serious problem.
Now, in terms of support options that are available for drug users, I mean, you'll drive around Johannesburg and you'll find in certain areas where you'll find young people in the streets begging for whatever it is that whether it's money or food, and the next time you see them, they're probably high or they don't look well. What sort of support options are there? And some do get help, but do end up back in the streets.
Yes, you are right. As social development, we work with other departments, and we are encouraging communities not to give those people that are begging on the street to give them cash, because when you give them cash, they go back and buy substances. So we rather give them something to eat than cash. And as social development, we've got various programs that we are doing to fight the scourge of substance abuse. I can mention that in order to fight substance abuse, we are fighting substance abuse in 4 levels. For example, we start with prevention, and prevention is the reason why we are commemorating the day today. We are raising awareness on the issues of substances. We are raising awareness on the harmful effects of substances, the consequences, how it affects the family, and so on. And then thereafter, the second level is the one of early intervention. With early intervention, that's where we tackle those that have started, but they have not yet they're not yet addicted. So what we do as social development, we give them motivational skills to say that, look, we have started and you are not yet there. So please stop now before you get addicted. After early intervention, we also have a treatment level. With treatment, it's for those that are now addicted to substances. Then, now, when we come into treatment, we've got inpatient and outpatient treatment. Inpatient treatment is for those that are really addicted to substances. They cannot live without substances. They drink every day. They drug every day. So we refer them to our treatment centers. And then with outpatient, you'll find that you are addicted, but you are still able to control yourself. That is, we have outpatient services that are available in our clinics and in the communities.
Sometimes you find, Mutsabi, that families end up letting go of their members who are, addicted to drugs, who have a bit of a, not even a bit of a problem, but who have a problem, and families find themselves then turning away because either they're selling their stuff from the house or stealing their stuff or stealing money, and it becomes a crisis. This year's World Drug Day is calling for investment in prevention. How can this be achieved? And how do you then deal with families that have shut the door on their loved ones because they've just been through too much?
Yes, you are correct. Substance abuse is a disease. Our families need to know that it is a brain disease. And when you have a family member that is experiencing substance abuse, all you need to do is to support that person and go and seek help. And what is critical is support. Don't shut down, shut them away from you, not to support them. Because remember, I don't think there's anyone who was born and say, I want to be an addict. So there are reasons why people are abusing substances. And some of the reasons are the very same families themselves. So we are encouraging families not to stigmatize them. We are encouraging families to support them where they can. And if they don't know what to do with them, we are available as social development. There are treatment centers in all the 9 provinces where they can go. We've got DSD social workers that are available in all the 9 provinces. We've got our offices, and we also work hand in glove with our NGOs like your Sanka and your SADC, where they can go for assistance. So we are pleading with family members that please, they must not shut them down or out.
Well, Mutsabi, we are going to leave it here for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. That's Mutsabi Ngwane, social worker, policy manager at South Africa's Department of Social Development, joining us on the line. And it is that time of the day where we say happy Thursday and good afternoon to Tebogo Lekuleni. You're back in studio.
Back in studio where we belong. Listen, I don't mind outside broadcasts, but I love being in studio.
I know.
I love the backdrop behind us.
Exactly.
I mean, it's boiling right now, but outside of that, love being in studio. So here's what's coming up on the show this afternoon. It's Mental Health Awareness Month in South Africa. And we asked the question, if men's mental health were taken a bit more seriously, could we see a reduction or total elimination of abuse in the homes? So we asked that question this afternoon. And then we touch on inclusive learning, rather literally with Regent Business School's immersive education for the deaf and hard of hearing. And then the future looks very bright for our CEO, Lihle Lamola, founder of Freckle Eyewear. We talk about how fashion meets identity and distinction when it comes to eyewear and sunglasses. I know I personally don't own sunglasses, and I've been told by many of my friends that I need to get sunglasses. So maybe Freckle Eyewear is where I will be getting my glasses this afternoon. That's all coming up on the Upside.
Oh, that's going to be a very interesting one. And why do you not have sunglasses?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know.
Okay.
Usually when I see people with sunglasses, I'm like, those are very cool people. I don't classify myself as cool.
You know, they do protect your eyes. But anyways, all right.
Thank you for that.
That's how we wrap Africa Update. The Upside coming up at the top of the hour with Tebogo Lekuleni. And before we go, we pose a question with regards to the late former president of Zambia and whether should it be the government or the Lungu family who have the final say about where the former president's body should be buried. And we do have a response, and this is from Tenford Daka, who is one of our listeners, reached out on WhatsApp. He is in Chipata, Zambia, and he says that the government could have remained in power if the former leader had not returned to active politics. But this is difficult because the ECL is dead and he is in active politics. Our constitution is very clear unless there are no politicians. So these are the views of Tenford Daka, who is in Chipata in Zambia. Tenford, thank you for listening and thank you for your comment today on this crisis that we have been watching unfold in the courts yesterday. And that's a wrap of Africa Update. Continue with us on our social media platforms, and you could hear your comments being read out on Channel Africa, and just keep it coming. And thank you to the team, Tracy Bumgard, our producer, Mondli Mtambo, our technical operator, and Elaine Bengani on social media. It's goodbye for today, and let's do this tomorrow.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet.